am Zelda Kimball, and this is my presentation on why you shouldn't let it go. Feminism in Disney princess films. I hope you all really appreciate that pun. My research question is, to what extent can we see feminist trends appear throughout early Renaissance and revival periods in official Disney princesses based on their behavioral characteristics, and what can we hope to see in future Disney princess films? So basically, what I'm doing is I'm going to be qualitatively and quantitatively analyzing Disney films, and I'm going to be contrasting earlier Disney films to more modern Disney films and the ones in between, so that I can see through a correlational research method, I can look at the variables and see what interacts with each other and how feminism has either come up, stayed the same, like what's changed just in the whole realm of feminists in Disney movies. This is my anchor paper, Jenna Stevens, Disney's Darlings, an analysis of the princess and the frog, Tangled Brave, and the changing characterization of the princess archetype. She brings up a topic called reflection projection, which is where society and media are locked in a symbiotic relationship where they have an influence on each other. And from her paper, basically what she said is that there has been some influence, but she only goes up until Brave, and I've gone even further with Frozen, so I'm going to include that in my paper. So key terms are early films, which there's 3 films that fit into this category: Snow White, Cinderella, and Sleeping Beauty. Those go up until 1959. Renaissance films is kind of the revival of the princess genre, that's why they're called Renaissance films. And that's The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Pocahontas, and Mulan, which spans from 1989 to 1998. And finally, revival films, which are the more modern Disney princess films, starting with The Princess and the Frog, and then moving to 3D animation with Tangled, Brave, and Frozen, ending in 2013. Sadly, I will not have any data on the newest Disney princess movie, Moana, because that does not come out until December this year, but I am very excited for it. So I'm using a codification technique for my qualitative and quantitative data, and basically the rules was whenever a character, we had a bunch of codes, here are my key terms too, of feminine and masculine traits, and these were all of the traits that we looked for in the 3 movies that I analyzed, which are Tangled, Brave, and Frozen. And basically, it was me and my parents over the December break, and what we did is we watched each movie multiple times, and whenever a princess was mentioned as possessing a certain characteristic, such as when somebody's like, oh, she's so beautiful, or whatnot, we marked that down as a characteristic, and either they exhibited the trait, as another time when we marked down a tally mark, and basically, and every time the scene changed, we'd mark the trait down again. So when there was a shift in scenery or a new character was introduced, we'd mark it down as another trait. This was extremely difficult in the movie Brave, because one of the things that we had to find was athletic, and that girl shot about 35 arrows during the entire movie, and we didn't know, like, were we supposed to count each one? So that's just something me and my parents had to talk about and had a discussion about, so that we have data that all made sense with each other. The gap that my paper will cover, as I've said before, is the old research that's found in Gender Role Portrayal in the Disney Princess, which is an article where I got all my codification from. That only goes from 1937 to 2011, and more films have come out, so all of my data is from these new films, and I wanted to see if we could see an even greater shift in the one that they saw in the 2011 article. So basically, what I did and how I got my evidence is that all of this you see here is data that has already been taken by the gender role article, and this is what me and my parents did. So basically what happened is we would make a tally whenever we saw a masculine or a feminine trait, and what I did is I added them all up together, and then I found the average of what I said, what my mom said, what my dad said, and then I added up all the masculine traits per movie and all the feminine traits per movie, and that's how I got the data here. The total traits are here, and I put my data into a chart. Now here are all of the films. Those are the masculine traits, these are the feminine traits, and you can really see which Disney princesses, especially the earlier ones, they show by far more feminine traits, while it's kind of getting a little bit more equal as we come further into the future. And then by each movie, we can clearly see that early films have lots of spikes in feminism. The pink is for girls. I couldn't figure out how to work the axis. I'm sorry for using outdated gender stereotype colors, but it's just clear this way. But you can see with Princess and the Frog, like with not even counting the data that I collected, it's still a little bit unclear that feminism is getting better. But in the 3 most recent movies, Frozen, especially, masculine characteristics actually outnumber feminine characteristics. And in Brave, they're about equal. In Tangled, they're even more so. So there has clearly been some change, which has happened very recently that they might not have gotten if they had only counted up until 2011, which is this data point here. So I'm very happy that the gap that I've covered has shown positive influence in feminism in Disney films. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zelda. Zelda, do you find that your analysis, I mean, you haven't really analyzed it yet, but obviously you're very happy about the results, but do you find that there's going to be limitations to your analysis or these results?
Well, what I've done is I've read the article that the codification system came through many, many times, and all of my data was taken exactly the way that they did it.
Like those old research.
I went rule by rule, and these key terms actually all come with definitions that I did not include on slide because of spatial issues.
Sure.
But I forced my parents to spend at least 2 hours reading and making sure they were clear with all the terms.
Wow.
I was very clear with all the terms because some of them have,
excellent, yeah.
like, if you're a victim, like that's kind of an iffy term, but there is definite definitions that I will be including in my actual paper that I just have not put up here.
And just had a question on how long would it actually take you and your parents to codify per film, would you say? I mean, because there's a lot of traits you're looking at.
There are a lot of traits we're looking at, but it was me and then 3 other people, so we watched each movie. So with what we did, the first movie we watched was Frozen, because my family is the most familiar with that film. So we watched it once, we did the entire thing, then we watched it twice, and we found our data was identical. So we didn't really need to watch the movies more than once. We just watched it once as a group. And then I took the averages and the data.
I think it's important that you note that you're not just watching it one time, that you're actually, going through it and making sure that my data is correct. That's really good. Other questions?
I was just like, I guess a comment, like the fact that like what you and your parents aren't necessarily like experts, right? So that's like, I guess, like, do you view that as a limitation that coming from a perspective that's not like studied gender studies or studies film or anything?
Well, I actually don't find that a limitation because the key terms aren't necessarily things that you need to be into gender studies. Like it's whether someone is tentative, which means they stutter in a sentence. And what I actually found is I feel like me as an 18-year-old girl and then my mom and my dad who are both 50 but different genders, even though we're all kind of different demographics, we had almost identical data no matter what we did. So I don't think how you view the movies is dependent on like any terms that